Thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining in, it's Newsweek where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. Now, this week, senior military officers in Nigeria were given a deadline of Monday, July 3rd, 2023, by the Defense Headquarters to tender their resignation. It directed all senior officers with seniority on commission above Nigerian Defense Academy regular course 39 to proceed on voluntary retirement. The notice of resignation was issued in an official statement from the Defense Headquarters signed by Major General Yahaya Forward, the Chief of Defense Staff. It should be noted that according to military tradition, senior officers are unlikely to take orders from their juniors. Thus, the new appointments necessitate the compulsory retirement of about 100 top officers, including generals, brigadiers, general, air vice marshals, and admirals in the Nigerian Army, Navy, and Air Force from the force. I still have Olufemi Lawson in the studio. How do you react to this development? Many believe it's long overdue.
No, it's an age-long tradition, even though it's not a matter of law. But just like you said, it is a tradition which allows these new service chiefs to function without hindrances. And it is very unfortunate that it has to get to the point where official circulars have to be issued for the persons in this category to quit at this point, because it has been something that silently, has been done over the years, where, people are elevated to certain ranks. It is expected the people who are their seniors in service are eased out of, because just like you said, it is strange in the military tradition for senior officers to take orders from their juniors. And for people who were commissioned earlier as, officers of the military than these ones who are currently serving as a service chief, it is only traditionally expected for them to be quietly hissed out of the service. But I think the refusal of some of these persons to leave now is necessitating this kind of circular, which is almost alien, in the military culture and tradition. And I think it is one of the reasons why the new leadership of the country must ensure that, some issues that have to do with our laws and conventions are given serious respect. Our institutions have to be looked into to the extent that certain things are not allowed to generate into public ridicule. Like this may almost, if you recall that days after the appointment of the service chiefs, the Chief of Naval Staff was still resuming in his office, waiting, allegedly signing documents and refusing to hand over, as at the time the Chief of Army Staff and Chief of Air Staff had handed over to their successors. So these are issues that has to do with discipline and the fact that there seems to be an attempt to deviate from the culture, the tradition of that system. And I think this is not encouraging, especially when it is known that in the military service, it is practically impossible for senior ranking officers to take orders from their junior, who have now become their bosses in this case.
All right, like you said, it's tradition, but then let's look at the situation in the country, how the issue of insecurity is really eating the country deep, and what could be the implication of this mass looming retirement?
Well, of course, it is even funny at some point when we begin to hear the number of people who are already in the rank of major generals and the likes, numbering into hundreds in the military service. The truth is that these words are not going to be won, especially when you look at experience in the last couple of years, by the number of generals we have been able to produce. If you look at the people who have had sterling performances and records in the war against insurgency in Nigeria, they are not mostly generals. You have recalled the history of some of these people who are lieutenant colonel who have led battles in the northeast and other parts of the country. So it is not about the number of generals that you have as a country in your military that determines your capacity to achieve victory in this kind of wars that we are having. I think it's all about professionalism, which can be attained by the military through any of its cadreship, any of its category in the service, not necessarily by having 400, 350 generals, most of whom are not even on the battlefield.
All right, do you also agree with me that the president has continued to make changes in different sectors across the polity? And do you see this continuing? Do you see these changes continuing? And what is the sector do you think that needs more of these touches or rejigging more?
Well, I think, in all sincerity, the president's eye cannot be everywhere. And that is why Nigerians are anticipating that President Bola Tinubu will bring in, a very solid team of credible people, brilliant and experienced people to work with him. You see, Nigerians are excited to see the president suspending the former governor of the central bank, the former chairman of the EFCC. But the truth is that a lot of agencies in Nigeria, are riddled, with corruption, incompetence. A lot of agencies in Nigeria today are doing worse than the EFCC, ICP, and CBN have done under Bawa and Emefiele. So the president must broaden, his approach to check, to bring in credibility back into the system, to bring in, law and order back into the system. And that is why we are asking that agencies of government, especially those critical agencies of government that have been, run in such a manner that are not only corrupt, but have entrenched sort of culture that are against the progress of this country, have to be looked into. Like I said, the president cannot do it alone. The president must be willing to, listen to advices from people who are going to work with him, people who are going to have beamed their searchlight into the activities of these agencies of government. A lot of them, like that, a lot of agencies have become cesspool of corruption. And the leadership of these agencies are still sitting down there. So the president must look beyond these core agencies like he is doing to all those other critical agencies of government, ministries and departments where corruption and other form of illegalities have become the order of the day. So far, the president is not doing bad in his approach to governance, but it is not unexpected of the kind of person he is from his antecedent. But I think more has to be done to give Nigerians more confidence in his administration.